Good evening, I'm Greer McGeary, Life Member of Seahorse Victoria, and my guest tonight is Summer Kent, Co-Chair of the Ally Network. Welcome, Summer.
Thanks, Greer.
Yeah, so what is the Ally Network?
The Ally Network is an employee resource group that is within the organisation that I work for, the Australian Financial Complaints Authority. It's a bit of a mouthful, but essentially we are the ombudsman for the financial services sector. So we act as a mediator that really sort of helps parties, insurance companies, banks, superannuation funds and their customers reach resolutions to issues that they haven't been able to resolve between themselves.
Fairly wide network, is it?
That's correct, yeah, it is. Maybe just over 90 people now within the network.
Oh, gee, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really just, it's a space that people can ultimately go to, and a network that people can.
You're supporting what quite colloquially we might call the alphabet community within those organisations.
Yeah, that's correct.
So you're finding it reasonably successful?
It's definitely been successful. I've been co-chair now since last June, and it's been just an absolute honour, I think, to really be so involved within the community and sort of to be able to be a bit of an advocate as well within my workplace for the LGBTQIA plus community has been really amazing.
You've now sort of in a reasonably confident sort of place in your life. So let's maybe step back a little bit. And what are your first memories of being brought up differently to what you expected?
I grew up in a family, 3 kids, my brother and my sister, and sort of my earliest memories were seeing my sister and sort of seeing the things that she got to do and how she got to dress, and not understanding why I couldn't dress and sort of wear the makeup and do all those things that she was doing. But it really became apparent to me quite quickly that I had a certain place, and essentially boys don't do those types of things. So it was this real kind of early understanding that I have this secret and I can't really sort of talk to anyone about this.
You not being able to talk to somebody about it, but did your parents or your siblings sort of pick up something different in you?
I think they always picked up something different. I wouldn't say that it was in regards to my gender as such. I kept that pretty close to my chest, and I think I got quite lucky in the sense that a lot of the interests that I held were quite androgynous. So I always really loved rock and roll, and so there was a lot of influences like the great Bowie and loved film and art, and so I think they knew that I was different to my brother and sister in that way, but I think it was more relating to the art and being a bit of an artist, and I guess people would refer to me as a bit of an old soul as well. So I think that they kind of noticed I was different, but in terms of how I was feeling about my gender, that was always held pretty tight to my chest.
Because I think one of the things too is that at a young age, even into adulthood, that quite often we don't have language to describe how we're feeling.
Oh, of course. It's one of those things that unfortunately the only language that was available the only information that was really available early on in the piece, and I'm sure you would understand this, is that we had these really derogatory terms when you would look up or try to figure out. You could be looking up boy to girl or something on the internet, and you'd get something that was definitely nothing related to being transgender. It's
usually quite derogatory.
Yeah.
So like in that, really your primary school days, what was it like at school? You picked out as being different?
At school, again, I think I was picked out as being different. I think I always knew that there was something maybe different about how my brain worked as well. I later discovered that I have ADHD. So I think that on top of having this secret, it really, I just didn't feel the same as other people, and I was walking through this kind of schooling life as.
So what sort of things, like you mentioned about sort of the music aspect, did you take up learning an instrument or anything?
So from a pretty young age, I discovered that I was, I guess, musically inclined. I had an auntie of mine who actually had a grand piano, and I just remember sitting with her at the piano, and she would kind of hum the notes to, I think the song was The Entertainer, and I could just hear the notes, and then I would just kind of fiddle around on the piano and sort of figure out the note by what I had heard. So I felt that there was, from early on, there was sort of definitely that musicality. I think as I was going through primary school, I did try to get lessons for piano, but when they were teaching me at a much slower rate than what I wanted to actually be playing, I was ready to be playing Billy Joel, Mozart, all those things, and they had me, no, you have to learn the basics first. So I kind of jumped out of that and found a real passion when I was probably about year 4, year 5 for punk rock music. And I felt like for the first time ever, I had found my place in the world a
That's
bit.
Interesting, because in grade 4 or 5, finding out you like punk rock seems a bit different to what everyone else at that point would have been doing.
Yeah, well, it was, and it was, it was interesting. I think I must have heard, I think it was the band Blink-182, and it must have been from a burnt CD at the time from my sister, who was quite a bit older. I think she was 4 years older than me. So, kind of when I was in year 4, they were sort of just starting high school. So I was kind of getting tidbits of whatever they were listening to. And but it was really just for the first time, again, I was introduced to these sort of outcasts and people that were a bit different, and people that were not afraid to be themselves, and that felt really special to me. Because again, through primary school, I think having what I now know as ADHD, and also having my gender secret, it led me to have a lot of...
So outside of that home and school and you're involved in external activities, sport or tiddlywinks or whatever?
Well, my parents had all 3 of me and my siblings in sports, and they had me in soccer, cricket, softball, baseball, and it just didn't seem to work out because I'm terrified of any sort of like contact sport or anything like that. So you'd often find me while everyone else is trying to be in amongst the game, I was kind of off in the background kicking dirt around or whatever I could do to kind of get myself away from all the action. So it was it took a bit of pleading, but eventually I kind of moved from the sports world to kind of being able to play in bands and playing music, and eventually learnt guitar. And
moving from primary, say, into secondary sort of thing, how was that sort of transition, as it were, from primary to secondary and having all that background so far?
Secondary was not great. I think that having this secret, and again with the ADHD and all these things that were kind of going on inside of me that I couldn't really figure out. I didn't really understand myself, and I think you're sort of a bit too young to kind of understand everything that's going on. And so that just led me to really, I think, rebel is probably the best word. And so I found myself often getting asked to leave the classroom because I was either just not listening or being distracted or in my own head, or and then eventually that actually led me to being asked to leave school later on down the track. And I think it was just really a case of, I knew that I didn't really want to be there. And I think even as a young person, I felt this desire to be free of.
So with that sort of disruption, in the way you're being at school sort of thing, how are your parents and siblings?
My parents, bless their souls, incredible. I just think that it would have been extremely difficult for my mum, and she was just always there with me every step of the way. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was younger, and the way that she assisted me was through a lot of
getting professional help for you?
Yeah, so she helped me through getting things like, I was working with a naturopath. She helped me with getting a tutor. I think with the ADHD and the way that I learn, I just wasn't picking things up as fast as other kids. So she helped me by making sure that I had a tutor, making sure that I had support at school. So she really did everything that she possibly could without fully understanding the depth of things like ADHD or fully understanding what I was actually going through.
So really a supportive environment, even allowing for your own sort of waywardness, as it might be described as.
Oh, definitely. It was, the support that they showed me, I consider myself to be very blessed. Although there was these times of rebellion and kind of just, as you mentioned, sort of that wayward teen. When I did end up leaving school, I ended up joining this band, and for a lot of years we played in the band, and they could just see a change in me when I was doing something that I was really passionate about and that I really loved. There was a change in my personality. There was just a change because I felt very safe playing in my band, and I felt very focused and very passionate about.
So being in a band, what were your band members like?
They were amazing, really, really just wonderful human beings, and still some of my closest friends to this day. Again, really lucky that I met these few really good people, and it was almost like this kind of family situation. It was just like, I felt like I had some extended family within the band. And
so how old were you when you sort of left school and joined the band?
so I was probably must have been about 16. So it was at the start of year 10 that I'd actually been asked to leave school. I was lucky enough to be able to finish my year 10, or what we call, so I grew up in Sydney, and what we call our year 10 certificate. I was lucky enough to be able to finish that through schooling by correspondence. And so by the end of that year, I think it might have been 2009, I kind of, was just sort of fully immersed in band life and playing gigs of a weekend. And so I must have been about, 17, I think.
You got into something you really enjoyed doing. So when did you finally start to explore what it is, the secret you had within you?
All through my childhood and all through my teen years, I was, I guess, behind closed doors, dressing as the gender I felt more comfortable with. And so there was a lot of, I feel like, maybe close calls, because in the childhood home, and in when you've got like a family everywhere, and you're trying to sort of, I don't know, sneak in and kind of see yourself dressed in whatever you want to be dressed in, but also the fear of anybody walking in. So I kind of feel like growing up, there was always that level of, trying out different things. I'd put on a bit of makeup and then quickly rubbing it off. And then, it probably wasn't until I was mid-20s, actually, that I had decided that it was time to really sort of figure out what was going on. I did have sort of relationships from when I was maybe like 17 till I was maybe 21. And in those relationships, I think having this secret and really not fully understanding what it all meant, I think it took its toll on these relationships.
That is a fairly common thing, because you so get tense and pent up, but quite not often, but often enough to be disruptive to a relationship.
It was one of those things as well that I think I shied away from. I think I realized that I couldn't be the person that they needed me to be, and so I had decided that sort of around 21 that I wasn't ever going to meet anyone again, and that way I wouldn't have to ever come to terms with or face this thing that I've been feeling. And so
had you even hinted to anyone in, from all the time you've held the secret that you had a secret?
No, I'd never spoken to anyone about it, and it was something that I had promised myself that I would essentially take to the grave. I just said, okay, well, the last relationship that sort of didn't work out, I just thought, all right, well, I will just be a single person. Nobody will ever have to ask me any questions. I won't ever have to come to terms with anything. And it wasn't until I was 25, I believe, I just turned 25, and my sister announced that she was pregnant for the first time. Maybe a day or so after she announced that, I just decided that how am I ever going to explain to my niece or talk to my niece about being her true authentic self if I couldn't be my true authentic self? And around that time, Caitlyn Jenner had just come out, and it was a really exciting time for me because it was the first time that something like this was happening, and it was happening on, well, not the first time like this was, that like, yeah, something was happening, but it was the first time that it was being, that I know, being televised. And there I was with my dad and my brother, and these news stories were coming up, and I could see kind of my family's comments about it, and kind of really get a bit of an insight as to, okay, well, what are people sort of thinking about this? What are people actually in my family, what are they saying about this? And it kind of really was also just the first time that I thought, wow, okay, well, maybe there's something here. We have a very similar story. Caitlyn knew that she was quite young when she kind of realized she was different, and we had a very similar story. So it was just, yeah, around that time that I was like, this is it.
Where did you sort of go and seek help from, or information from?
In terms of seeking help, it was really the internet to start with. I think once I had heard the word or the term transgender, it was the first time that I'd heard it been put that way, and it was the first time that it wasn't this derogatory term. And so I did a lot of research online. It wasn't just this light bulb moment that I'm transgender. It was really trying to put all the pieces together. I knew I had certain feelings. It was first, maybe I'm just gay, or maybe I'm being able to have that term, and then have the internet where it was at the time I was 25, and it allowed me to dig a bit deeper. At that time there was, I think, a few transgender YouTube stars and different things, and there was also a punk artist that I really loved called Laura Jane Grace, and she had not long come out as well, and so I read her book, and it was just a culmination of all of that that kind of led me to sort of realize, oh, okay, this is who I am.
Those first steps of talking to somebody else about it can be feeling quite terrified of doing that. So who or what organisation did you approach?
I can't even remember if it was that I knew it was a colleague of mine, and I don't know if it was that I talked to her about it, or if I sent her a text message, and then we kind of met up, and I was like, well, this is what's happening. And so yeah, it was before I sort of got into any organizations and spoke with any organizations, it was kind of about at least telling somebody, and then from there it was doing my own research about I guess doctors and what doctors I could see.
Did you go to the gender clinic or gender centre, I think it's called, in Sydney?
Yeah. So I actually went to the gender centre, but again, this wasn't sort of until a bit kind of later on, after I'd spoken with my family, and after I'd sort of come out to my family and explained what was going to be happening. The Gender Centre was a great resource for us all to sort of come together in almost this family therapy type session where we all kind of went there and we sat down, and it was a way that my parents could get a bit more of an understanding of what was going on. I think in the way that I had explained it to them, it was all quite sudden. It was, I'd made this decision. I found out who I truly was, and I'm going to be transitioning. And that was just, I was sort of just like, well, this is what's happening. And I don't think I fully was ready enough to be able to educate. I did the best I could to educate them along the way, but I was also figuring this out for the first time on my own. So I think going to the Gender Centre was a really good moment for all of us to sort of be able to talk about, okay, how are you guys feeling? What can you do to support me, and how can I maybe support you in terms of education or anything like that?
It's a big challenge for the family and that, but they're very supportive now.
Yeah, it's again in terms of immediate family and extended family, they've all been extremely supportive. It was a really beautiful moment when I was able to essentially come out to my dad, and that was someone that I was never worried about that he wouldn't support me, but I think it was more of an internal thing that I was worried that he might have a different perception of me, or it might change our already like established relationship, and I just never wanted him to see me as anyone other than just me, and so, but it was a really beautiful moment when I was able to come out to him, and the first thing that he said was, okay, how can we help? And there was just it just didn't seem like there was any hesitation or anything like that.
I imagine that would have taken a lot of weight off your shoulder.
For me, once I knew that I had my parents in my corner, it just felt like anybody else, I was just like, I don't care. It kind of felt like to me that I almost, at the time, I just needed my parents in my corner, and then the rest of the world, it was just, that was kind of a piece of cake, because I knew that I at least had these two people.
Well, that's right, the core of your existence in a sense. Yeah. So you end up moving to Melbourne just after, or just on the start of COVID.
Yeah.
So what brought you to Melbourne?
I was 25 when I sort of had first kind of sort of spoken the words and sort of said I'm trans, and then I think I spent, when I was 26, I kind of spent the year sort of starting the process of hormones and that side of things, and so it must have been 2018, so 2019, and then 2020, after sort of a year of being in Sydney, starting hormones, sort of going through that process.
Was that sense of like you really want to make a new start as yourself?
Yeah, I think going through that kind of those really early initial stages in that first year, it was kind of nice to be in Sydney and be close to everyone. But yeah, 2020, I just knew that I needed to.
You've got to Melbourne and you've been able to live your life, and you end up getting the job that we spoke about at the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah.
And the Ally. So you're pretty happy with the way your life is now?
It's been a crazy journey, and I'm now the co-chair of this LGBT network. Is just the most special thing to me. It has really healed a part of me that I think needed healing, and I think I'm surrounded by such lovely queer individuals and allies. I think where I'm at now in my life, I've just really learnt to love myself wholeheartedly, and I think it's just been special.
I think on that really very positive note about where you are at now. Thank you for the conversation today.
No, look, not a problem at all. I appreciate you having me.
I'm Graham Aguirre, and my guest has been Summer Kent. Thank you for watching Bent TV.